Hello, friends. The 1058th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Russians are advancing in the area of the village of Kotliny to the west of Pokrovsk, reports the Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State. Russian troops have been successful here for several days in a row. The enemy has reached the road and the railway southwest of the village and is also trying to break into the settlement itself, the telegram channel writes. Deep State believes that the corresponding advances once again show the enemy's intention to bypass Pokrovsk in order to encircle it. But, according to the telegram channel, the main thing for Russia here is to master logistics, and they are trying to achieve this, at least by taking it under fire control. To do this, the enemy is using FPV drones, and today also with fiber optics, which is actively gaining popularity due to the lack of influence of electronic warfare systems on them. At times, one of the most effective units of enemy pilots, Sudoplatov, is recorded in the area. The target is the road from Pavlograd to Pokrovsk, which is already in the risk zone for movement, the report says. Fighter Muchnoi writes that the fighting is taking place in the center of Kotliny and to the east, and that our guys are in a bad position. Deep State reports on the activity of the Russian army in the direction of Yevhenii, which could become a stronghold for the Russians in this area to consolidate their movement to the border of the Donetsk region. There are reports that the enemy has already managed to consolidate on the outskirts of Yevhenii, where they are trying to break through to the railway station. If the Russians take control of the station, then our troops will have to retreat to the mine area, which is a strong defense note. Deep State also writes that assault actions are being carried out in the direction of Zverovi, from the village of Pichani, as well as the consolidation and saturation of the village of Shevchenko with resources, which the enemy has in fact occupied, and is forming a certain stronghold from it. At the same time, today the telegram channel announced that the armed forces of Ukraine have restored positions in the Uspanivka area. The Russians captured Neskuchny near Velikonovosilka, according to the Deep State map. Earlier, the Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Neskuchny. At the same time, a Ukrainian serviceman with the call sign Muchnoi claims that the Russians were able to break through to Vremevka. They are being hit by fire. In Toretsk, the Russian army began an assault on the Toretsk mine and advanced in the northwestern part of the city, Muchnoi reports. The Fomica mine waste heap and a small private sector near it remain. They can reach the rear of Kostiantinivka and provide a flank for further movement to Kramatorsk, he added. I note that, according to Ukrainian and Russian military telegram channels, the Toretsk mine remains the last major defense center in the city. Also, according to Muchnoi, battles are currently underway in Chasiv Yar for the central high-rise. There is a small block left there. It will be very difficult to hold the rest of the city, and we will have to gradually retreat. In fact, we are also rolling back to the outskirts of Kostiantinivka, he wrote. I will note that Deep State reported yesterday that the Russians had captured the Novi micro-district in Chasiv Yar and were advancing in the Yevhenii micro-district and in the city center. Ukrainian military expert Mashevets believes that the Russians in Donetsk region are currently trying to achieve two main goals. First, to deeply encircle the city of Pokrovsk from the south and southwest. Second, to force Ukrainian troops to withdraw from the remnants of the Kurakovi salient. It is quite possible that sooner or later the enemy will be able to solve both of these tasks, Mashevets suggests. At the same time, for this, Russian troops will have to replenish their forces and regroup them. This will take a certain amount of time, during which the enemy will have to reduce the intensity of its actions in these areas one way or another, he adds. At the same time, other Ukrainian military observers and speakers call the situation even more critical. The Ukrainian command no longer controls the situation near Pokrovsk and Velikonovosilka, says Butusov, editor-in-chief of the censor publication. According to him, another 4 kilometers, and the enemy will cut off the key highway Dnipro-Pokrovsk. We are losing Pokrovsk ineptly and irresponsibly, he writes. In his post, he criticizes the leadership of the armed forces of Ukraine and names names, which I will probably refuse. Our troops are practically constantly rushing into a counter-battle. Firepower is not used to its full potential. The use of drones is limited. There is no interaction between drones and electronic warfare systems. There is a lack of engineering work, significant losses of our infantry, which does not have time to prepare and consolidate, Butusov writes. In turn, People's Deputy Bezagla published a video from Russian telegram channels with captured Ukrainian fortifications near Pokrovsk. The fortifications that were built, which no one used, not a single cartridge case uninhabited, were simply surrendered to the Russians without a fight. They force people to hold a bush in front, but do not form a second echelon in already prepared positions. As a result, several people in front die or flee, and the Russians capture everything, writes Bezagla. She claims that she recently went to the front and saw for herself how kilometers of such positions are completely empty, falling apart, and units on the front line are prohibited from planning to leave and even use such terms. Brigade commander of the 3rd Assault Brigade Bieletsky said that the entire front line is now in trouble due to a lack of personnel. According to Bieletsky, the task assigned to his brigade, which has 3,000 to 5,000 people, should be carried out by a division of 6,000 to 25,000 soldiers. If you cut inadequate tasks, then you should not be surprised by inadequate results, he said. Our commanders like to ask according to the regulations, but the tasks they set are absolutely not according to the regulations. The brigade holds almost 50 kilometers of the front. This entire territory is attacked by 2 divisions of 2 different enemy armies, Bieletsky added. I would like to note that the politician, radical nationalist and leader of the National Corps Party Bieletsky is one of the most media-famous Ukrainian military men, and his 3rd Assault Brigade is one of the most combat-ready. And earlier, he and his associates regularly spoke out against a ceasefire and for a war to the bitter end. But recently, his rhetoric has changed. Recently, he supported the possibility of concluding a truce on any terms. If there is a ceasefire on any terms, on January 20 or sometime, there is nothing wrong with that if we start modernizing the country and the security bloc. If there is a ceasefire, absolutely nothing catastrophic will happen, except that if we fall into anarchy, into an endless war and a resolution of questions about who fought more, who is a bigger hero, who is a bigger volunteer, and who loved Ukraine more in the last 3 years. If we do not do this, do not fall into anarchy, start modernizing the country, then good, said Bieletsky. And these are quite indicative changes in my opinion. Yesterday, Zelensky confirmed the previously cited calculations about Russia's numerical advantage at the front. He said that more than 600,000 Russian soldiers are in Ukraine. The number of the Ukrainian army is 880,000 soldiers, but they are dispersed throughout the country. Russian troops are concentrated in some areas, and therefore in some areas they have a quantitative advantage, Zelensky said. Earlier, former advisor to the presidential office Arestovich calculated that, according to this logic, taking into account the unauthorized abandonment of the unit, the wounded, guarding the border with Belarus, and the like, Russia has approximately a 2-fold numerical advantage at the front. In the end, I would like to share with you the statements of the Ukrainian journalist Portnikov. In my personal opinion, his statements indirectly answer the question of why Ukraine has problems with mobilization. So Portnikov said that ordinary people should die in the war, not the elite. Now we hear from people that deputies should fight, and then they will go. No, people, this is a democratic state. In a democratic state, an ordinary person dies for the country. If we want aristocrats to die for the state, we must live in a feudal country, as it was before the Great French Revolution, Portnikov said. He also previously stated that Ukrainian citizens should not be concerned about corruption in the country now. And he advised those who are still concerned about this issue to leave Ukraine. If you are worried that your country is corrupt, and not that this country will soon cease to exist, then take your suitcase, go to the station, go to Warsaw, and don't bother anyone, Portnikov said. The thing is that Portnikov forgot about the closed borders for ordinary Ukrainians. Although, to be honest, I won't be surprised that if he wants to leave, he will be able to do so. As they say, this is how we live. Friends, I understand that the duration of events is becoming less relevant for you, but for me the situation is only getting worse. Those who have been with me for a long time know that preparing reports on this channel has become my main job, and I have no other job for obvious reasons. Lately, the channel has had few views, so I ask for your help. If you have the opportunity to support me with a cup of coffee, I will be very grateful. Thank you very much for understanding and see you in the next video.